Again, my name is Linda Starr, and I'm the Vice President at Kids & Company. We are very excited today to launch our very first webinar series. Today, the topic is on how to be an effective disciplinarian. We'll be hosting monthly webinars, a minimum of one a month, and these will be focused on family-friendly topics, work-life integration, and balance topics. These webinars will be live and recorded, and they will be facilitated by subject matter experts. So we will have a variety of topics. Some of the upcoming ones will be transitioning back to work from maternity or parental leave, how to manage illness when your child's starting childcare, how to transition from a bottle to a cup, a variety of elder care topics, and many more. But today, it's my pleasure to welcome Alyson Schafer. Alyson is a family counselor, she's an author, and one of Canada's most notable parenting experts. A 3-time TEDx presenter, Alyson has been sharing her wisdom about parenting with audiences internationally for over a decade. She's the author of 3 best-selling parenting books entitled Breaking the Good Mom Myth, Honey, I Wrecked the Kids, and I Ain't Misbehavin'. Alyson's also a TV personality and the media go-to expert when family issues hit the news. So please help me in welcoming Alyson Schafer.
Do you love this sliding in from the left? Hi, everybody. I'm so pleased to be chosen to be your inaugural speaker. And I can't think of a more burning issue from parents than how to discipline our kids. And I want to teach you how to do that effectively over the course of this next hour. And because I want to be here for you, the best way for us to interact is to use the chat function. So if you haven't found it yet, if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, I know there is the opportunity to raise a hand and Q&A, but I think because it's more user-friendly, more interactive, let's just stick with the one functionality of the chat. I will be presenting slides, and I'll be toggling back and forth between the slides, my head talking, and answering questions during the chat. So even though we will do an official Q&A, I would really like us to be able to dialogue throughout. So start now. If you have a discipline question right now, go down to that chat function, put it in. I'll keep checking in periodically, but because I want to make sure we cover all our material over the hour, if I stop taking chat questions, it's simply because I want to get through our material. So that's our format for today. And part of understanding about being an effective disciplinarian is also about realizing that it's not just about correcting kids when behavior goes off the rails. It's really about child guidance. So I'm going to be talking about both. So let me go to our slides here. All right, are we following along? When we look at the idea of being a disciplinarian, we have to think about the long term. How do we want our child to grow? What are we trying to aim for? And there's basically 2 models. We have come from a cultural tradition that has had as a parenting long-term goal to raise children to be obedient. But times are changing. We're actually seeing that we really want to prepare our kids for a future society that is not looking for obedient children. We're not raising kids anymore to work in line factories where you're just told what to do and you work like a robot. That the future world and workplace is all about creativity and teamwork and collaboration. So if we look at wanting to have kids have pro-social behavior, we want kids to behave in ways that are helpful, useful, and contributory, because they genuinely see the benefit of it. Meaning we want kids who are cooperative, which is very different than kids that are behaving nicely, sitting properly at circle time, hanging up their coat, because they are fearful that they're going to get punished, or else they're waiting for you to or reward them with something. So the old style which I'm showing in the left representation of this slide, is that hierarchical parent at the top, mind my will, do as I say, I'm in a higher power position, and the child is being the oppressed, simply following rules, following orders is what most of us were raised by. And part of why we're challenged with how to be an effective disciplinarian is we don't have a cultural tradition of new ways of disciplining our kids. And that's why I'm excited about this hour ahead of us, because I think most parents would say they actually do want the cooperative child, that they do want to have that mutual respect in their family. And that is possible if we change up the tools that we're using for discipline. So this is about refreshing our techniques and not falling back on what has been a lot of maybe the way we were raised or the cultural tradition for the past hundreds of years. So we're pioneers, we're on this journey together, and I've got answers and solutions for you. But I need to just continue to set the stage here. So the first thing is to realize that that growth is natural. Our kids start as this small, inferior version of the species, and they naturally want to grow and develop and become the mature version. So just like the caterpillar wants to become the butterfly, or the tadpole wants to become the frog, your little babies really want to be like you, and you represent to them what the adult version of being a human being is. So one of the most important ideas around shaping our kids' behavior is to model good behavior in the first place. How are you leading your life? If you're always yelling, chances are your kid will yell. If you use emotionality when you get upset, they're likely to use emotionality to get upset as well. So think about how you're conducting your life, what kind of a representation of how we get along with other people, get along with our partners and spouses, get along with our nannies and the teachers in our daycare centers. What are we modeling to our kids about conflict, cooperation, how to get your way, the ways that we interact through life? But they will want to grow, and anyone who's got a 2-year-old knows they do want to grow. Me do it, I try. They so much want independence and to mimic everything that you're doing. So we don't really need to stimulate them or motivate them per se. A lot of it is us catching up and keeping up with them. So if we think about the fact that by the time they're 18, and I know that feels like a long time away when you got little kids, but think of all the things that you want your kids to know. Think about the kind of adult that you want to send out of your house and off to college or university. A lot of times what ends up happening is we don't prepare our kids. We wait until they're 17 and we realize they don't know how to do the dishes and they don't know how to be responsible. So we tend to infantilize kids in our culture. And when we do that, when the arrow is too low, as you can see on that slide, what tends to happen is we get kids that feel indulged. They expect you to be in servitude. They expect people to do for. They're not really prepared for life. We don't want to overburden kids either. Kids that are overburdened also will end up with an entitled sort of an attitude because they'll think life has been tough on them and they kind of deserve an apology. So we're trying to find that nice sweet spot as we're raising our kids and guiding them towards the kind of adult behaviors, the adult functioning that we want when they finally launch from us, as being a progressive step each step of the way. So the biggest, and this is because the early years are so important, I can't express enough that of all the families that I work with in my private practice, in my Facebook Live conversations, the number one common mistake of our generation is an effect called pampering. So that's more of a psychological term, but if the representation of this picture kind of gives you the idea of it, that we tend to want to rescue our children. So if you see a little chick in a shell trying to hatch, and you see its little beak pecking through, and you think, oh, my poor little baby, it's struggling, it can't get out, I'm gonna be so helpful, I don't want it to be in pain, I don't want it to have to work so hard, it seems like it's putting in so much effort, I'm gonna be so helpful, and you rip that shell away from that little struggling chick, the chick will actually die, because the need to struggle is what makes the muscles in the neck and in the breathing apparatus develop enough strength to live in the outside world. And so because of that, we have to change our thinking about kids struggling and to not want to step in and clear the path for life. There's a whole movement now about snowplow parenting, where we clean up the path of life so that it's easier for kids. We are not preparing them with the psychological development, the grit, the persistence that they need in order to stave off mental health and a whole bunch of other issues. So please do not be afraid of struggle. It is a really important part of the early childhood processes. Now, I'm just going to take a break because I've been talking for a little bit here, and I want to jump on over to our chat. Oh, yay! I see lots of people are joining us. That's fantastic. And people are starting to comment here. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for everyone's checking in because we weren't sure if we had our mics right. Thanks for your patience with that. So I'm hearing questions here from Lauren, how to align different perspective, views, and approaches of both parents, spouses, and co-parents. Great question. What I would suggest is we don't need everyone in a child's life to be exactly the same. If mommy and daddy, or daddy and daddy, mommy and mommy, whatever your family makeup is, were exactly the same, one of you would be redundant. What is more important for children is that each of you are consistent yourself, because kids will learn at school, this teacher treats me this way, my nanny treats me this way, my mom treats me this way, dad treats me that way, and they will understand internal consistency. So if you don't want to upset dad, you better not be loud, you know, when he's reading the paper or whatever. And if you don't want to get yelled at nursery school, then you better sit quietly at you know, carpet time, whatever it might be. They can understand that there's different rules for different situations and that there are different people interact differently with them. They can get that, they're smart. What is difficult is when you're inconsistent. So think about the child who doesn't know. One day I said a kind of a dirty word that my brother taught me, and everybody laughed because they thought it was really cute that the little kid said a dirty word. And then the second time I said it, I got smacked. That is very difficult for kids. Like, whoa, hold on a second here. Is this funny or is it not funny? You know, one day you're okay with it, the next day you're not okay with it. You're confusing me. That's difficult for kids. So the general rule of thumb is whoever starts the discipline finishes the discipline. So if you're sitting at the dinner table and the kid gets down from the table and somebody says, that's it, your plate is done, you're not eating anymore, and the child comes crying, Daddy took my plate away. You just said, yeah, I'm sorry, that's between you and your dad. I'm sure you'll work it out. So whoever starts it finishes it, and you have each other's backs. Then after the fact, you can say, hey, can we talk about what happened at dinner? I'm not sure we handled that situation properly. I'd like to review that with you. But in the moment, in front of the kids, they need to feel like the leaders of the family are working cooperatively together, and don't insert yourself. We call that triangulation. Okay, great questions. Keep posting, people. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here. So we're not going to pamper, which means we got to spend, in terms of wanting to discipline our kids, first we start by child guidance. How do we show them how to behave proactively before we nudge and correct when they're off track? And a lot of parents do this through thinking that kids will just learn through osmosis, and we forget we actually have to do the time to train them. And it might seem burdensome and time consuming, but the expression is you will spend more time correcting a child than you will training them in the first place. So you're going to front load it. It's going to take a little bit of time, and you want to give a lot of instructions. It's so much easier than having to say, no, don't do it like that. No, don't do it like that. Just start by telling them what they need to do. So when we go to the bathroom, we come in, we take one paper towel, we do 3 pumps of soap, get really into the details. Now you try it. So the point of this graph is to say, in the beginning, stage 1, when you're training, it's going to be a lot of instruction, a lot of explaining, a lot of details. You know, if you want to teach how to put on a sock, first we have to stretch it out so that it's not all elasticy. And then we got to bunch it up like a donut. Can you bunch yours up like a donut? It's a lot of talking, a lot of describing. Stage 2, the child is doing it with you. They're starting to mimic and practice, and you're just commenting like, you got it. Yours is looking like a donut too. Don't give up. Keep at it. And stage 3 is when you realize, look at that, my kid just put their sock on. Look at, they put their sock on 2 days in a row. By the 3rd day, you want to say, hey, you know what? You know how to put on socks. And then an important point has to happen where you say, you know what? I never have to do that for you again. That's your job now. And then this is the point about consistency. Then never do it again. So take time for training and never do for a child what a child can do for themselves. So now we're starting to get that 2-year-old who says, I do it. And we're actually growing them from that little caterpillar towards the butterfly with one piece at a time, one little skill. And this keeps them feeling very empowered. It helps them develop a sense of autonomy. And then we have less likelihood of kids actually getting into some misbehavior. We are going to get to the correction discipline part, but we got to guide them and train them towards what kind of human they're supposed to be, what is expected of them. That takes our time and attention. So not only do we want to teach about responsibilities like hanging up your coat and putting on your sock and brushing your teeth, but we also have to teach kids the social laws of living. How do we function in the group is probably one of the most important things that you can teach a child, because for all the rest of their life, starting in the family, in the classroom, and then out in the bigger world, they're expected to get along with others. And you are not doing anyone any favors by not training them. So if you want to have a child that can actually go to the puppet show at the library and sit and not disturb, we need to teach them about how we're expected to behave in public places. If you want to go to a restaurant and have a child sit in their chair and eat and not disturb the tables around them, you are not helping if you don't socialize them in how to eat in a restaurant. If you don't want kids to jump on the couch at grandma's house, it starts by teaching them not to jump on the couch in our own house. So we have to teach what those social expectations are. It helps them then fit in, behave, belong, connect with other people. It's the kids that are jumping on the couches, disturbing other people. Now they're into bad behavior. Now people are repelled by them. We're hurting them when we don't go about teaching them how to be successful in groups. So we need to teach limits and boundaries, true. And so the picture here is of a game. Think about it as if you're going to teach your kids to play soccer, they need to know, what are the lines? What are the boundaries? What happens when the ball goes, out of bounds? Once they learn the rules of the game, they can get on with having all kinds of fun. You're not being mean by teaching limits and boundaries. You're helping them play the game of life successfully. And so we got to chalk those boundary lines and be a good referee. If they're jumping on the couch, you don't want to sometimes say it's a problem and other times you're too lazy to go over there. Every time when the ball goes out of bounds in a good game of soccer, the referee needs to be there to call it and take action. So don't confuse your kids, be consistent, chalk those lines, not because you're mean, but because they'll be able to enjoy life to the fullest when they understand the rules of the game. And that's on you. Chalk those lines and referee. We'll talk about how to enforce that in a second. One of the big parts about correcting kids' behavior and disciplining kids is that we have this romantic notion that thinks that we should just be able to say something and our kids will listen, right? We want to just be able to say, well, I'm supposed to chalk the lines. I took this webinar with Alyson and she says I'm supposed to socialize you to not jump on couches, so get off the couch. And then we sit there dumbfounded when they don't get off the couch. We're like, I said get off the couch. It's not working, Alyson. I'm saying as much as we love the idea that our kids would just get off the couch because we said, or they would just brush their teeth because we told them to, or just hang up their coat, get rid of that fantasy. It is, I'm telling you, you will bang your head against the wall, it's just get rid of the expectation. In fact, if you really had a kid that listened to everything you did, you would have that blindly obedient kid who's really going to end up being a patsy. Because if you're not giving them instruction, somebody else is going to give them instruction. And somebody else who gives them instruction might be the pedophile who's stalking them. It might be the boyfriend when they're a teenager who says, come on, let's do something, naughty. You want your kid to not be blindly obedient. You're setting them up for risk. So instead it means, we say, just because I asked doesn't mean they're supposed to do anything. That's not a characterological flaw. It simply means, boom, I got to go to my toolbox. Kids learn from what you do, not from what you say. They learn from what you do, not from what you say. So we've got to get rid of this reliance on our wanting to talk to kids. It's action, action, action. So we need to load up your toolkit so that you've got those actionable things to do, so that we stop relying on this nagging, reminding, talking, saying over and over again, and being so disappointed in our children because it's being ineffective, and then we're thinking badly about them. I would actually say they're kids doing exactly what kids are doing, which is they're testing to see if you really mean what you're saying. They're doing their good, important parent kid job too. So let's get on to the, what to do. Let's start loading up some of your toolboxes. And again, I'm just going to go back to the questions just to make sure that people are actually jumping on and sharing some good stuff with me here. There's a little delay between when I hit these buttons and when it switches. So just have patience with me here. There we go. Let's see, trying to scroll back here. Hi, Alyson. I have 3 little ones at different ages, 6, 4, 2. You're busy. We've realized depending on which child we are dealing with, they have different behaviors and react differently to our approaches and to discipline and motivation. So what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. Yeah, totally right. However, we're careful not to appear unfair to our kids by having different outcomes to their behaviors. Also a good point. Not sure I'm explaining that well, but my question is basically, should we be consistent with all 3 kids to achieve a sense of fairness, or is there ways to treat them a little more individually? Great question. So I think you're managing to notice the difference there. So if you have a rule that says in our house, we don't jump on couches, it would be the perception from the kid's point of view is, well, how come the baby's allowed to jump on the couch and I'm not allowed to jump on the couch? That would seem unfair. So if the family policy is no couch jumping, then that could absolutely be for everybody. Where differences can occur is that in a family, we need to address the idea that getting everybody's needs met is the goal of being cared for in a family, but not everybody's needs are the same. So you might say as a bit of a joke, well, you know, Daddy had 3 pork chops for dinner last night. Do you think the 2-year-old should have 3 pork chops? Do you think I should force feed them? Because it would be really unfair if they didn't eat 3 pork chops, because we should all have 3 pork chops, right? And they're like, no, baby's not gonna eat 3 pork chops. I go, yeah, that's because the baby is smaller and has different needs, and Daddy has different needs. And adults stay up later and kids go to bed earlier because our bodies need different amounts of sleep. And at different times, different kids need different things. So when it's your birthday, you get to be the center of attention and you don't get to get gifts because it's not your special day and you'll have to wait. But then when it's your birthday, then you'll get all the attention and you'll get the special gifts. So it's to understand that there's an attitude of abundance, that everybody will be looked after, maybe not right now and not to the same extent. But if you start to make everything fair, you'll increase the competition in your family. If you know, it's going to be like, well, you read them 1 book, so I have to read you 1 book. And they're gonna be, yeah, but look at how many words are on their page. I have pictures in my book. I don't have the same number of words. And you go, okay, so let's read you 2 books. Well, hold on a second, look at the point sizes. Those words are, I'm telling you people, you are gonna end up being a bean counter. You're gonna be at McDonald's counting out the French fries and then getting a ruler to see which French fry is longer. Don't go there. Don't go there. You simply need to have them refer to themselves. Does not matter how many books your brother has. Let's talk about what you need for a good tuck-in, which is why I think using time is actually a little bit better. I got 15 minutes for both. I don't particularly care how we spend those 15 minutes. You know, it doesn't matter what your brother has for food. Look at your tummy. Is your pancake big enough for you, or do you need some more pancake? So I think that's a way to kind of stave things off there. And thank you for the questions. What to do when Dad is the friend and always and allows everything? Not much of a disciplinarian because causing Mom to be the mean mommy. Okay, so again, we're going to parenting differences here. One of the tendencies is that if one parent is more strict, the other parent the one parent says, oh my gosh, my partner is so strict. That's so unfair to the kids. I better be extra kind and gentle. So then they get more passive permissive. And then the harsher parent says, oh my gosh, the kids just walk over her. She's like a doormat. I better get stricter. They go, holy cow, he's getting stricter. I better be kinder. And you end up creating bigger divides in your parenting, which I think is harsher. So don't compensate for the other person's discipline style. Just go about your business. Now, if he's not stepping up and disciplining at all, I would suggest stepping out of the picture, and not completely out of the picture, but what I mean is I would allow him to have more opportunity to be the sole caregiver. So it might be he does tuck-ins. If his tuck-ins end up taking 3 hours because he can't get the kids to settle down and go to bed, that's on him. At some point he'll say, how come when you do tuck-ins, what's your magic? Because they always go to bed for you. And he might be more interested in your influence. Whereas if you keep just stepping in and tagging him out, everything's going to end up falling to you. So just you do your piece the way you want. He'll do his piece the way he wants. You'll both be stuck with the consequences of the kids' reactions and responses to it. But if it means that you need to like just back out a little bit, go to Starbucks at tuck-in time, say, hey, you know what? You got the kids on Saturday. I'm going to go get my hair done and go to yoga class. You might get more creative in wanting to learn some more about discipline. Or it may not bother him and it may just continue to bother you, but the kids will be fine. The kids will be fine. So our kids do well despite us, not because of us. We put way too much worry about how we're doing. So please go ahead, keep typing questions. I'm going to keep moving on to some tools here, being mindful that we're almost at the halfway mark here. Let me go back to sharing my PowerPoint. Let's get into some tools here. Share. Hang in. There we go. So tools for the toolbox. In the old style that we're kind of accustomed to, where we had the obedience model, all you basically had was punishment and rewards. That was it. You only had 2 tools. What I'm suggesting is that I don't want to take away tools for parents and then leave you with a complete void of what else to do. I can't think of anything that would be more disempowering to a parent. So I promise you that with this new approach where we're trying to raise cooperative kids rather than obedient kids, I'm not going to take away a parenting tool from you unless I replace it with another one that's effective. That's my goal in all the work that I do with parents. There's nothing worse than me giving all these ideals and principles and you can't execute. I want you to be able to execute. Now, we only have a short time, so I'm going to give you what I think are the early years and the most powerful ones. There are many, many, many tools to fill up your toolbox, much more than the 2 of punishment and rewards. But today we only have time for a few, so I'm going to make sure I give you the ones that are the most robust and that you're going to use the most at this age, okay? So the first one is natural consequences. A natural consequence is when we just step back and let life do the teaching. And so what I mean by that is our kids are brilliant at putting together cause and effect. So if you see a toddler trying to get into the kitchen cupboards and the cupboards have a spring, they will learn that if you don't hold your fingers back, the cupboard is going to give you a pinchie. And kids do not get pinchies time and time and time and time and time again. They might get 2 pinchies, maybe 3, until they figure out the mechanics of a spring, but they learn because the feedback of experiencing the spring of the cupboard. So we know kids learn the fastest from natural consequences. We just don't like kids to get their fingers pinched because it hurts us to see them in a little bit of pain. So I'm not suggesting that we do something life-threatening. You don't teach your kids about, don't run into traffic because you'll get hit by a car by getting hit by a car. I mean, I'm not this ridiculous. But for the smaller little, the ouchies, the bumps, the discomforts of life that aren't life-threatening, stand back and allow them to learn. It allows them to learn about risk. Then they learn to make good choices from their own intrinsic motivation of having experienced what that's like. So if you don't wear a coat, you're going to feel cold. We're coming into spring here. The temperatures are rising. Nobody's going to die of frostbite if you don't wear a coat when you go outside. And you can just practice in your own backyard. So you can say, well, I'm putting on a coat. I want to stay out and play. And when I'm chilly, I have to go in earlier and I like to play. So I'm going to choose a coat for me. And without getting into a fight with you, they'll get out, they'll get cold, they'll go, you know what? I think I want a coat on too. Oh, look at you. You're learning about your body. You're making good choices for yourself. Let's go get you a coat. So it's the cold that's going to teach them. Most kids never experience cold because we're like, put your coat on, put your coat on, put your coat on. This is a perfect time of year to experiment with them making some choices so they understand. If you don't have food, you get hungry. Most kids in North America we have an obesity crisis, for Pete's sakes. Most of our kids don't know what hunger is. Most of our kids are eating every 2 hours. It's okay to be able to say, if you didn't get enough in your belly at mealtime, oh, rub your belly. I know snack time's coming, hang in there. You'll figure out how much food to get in your mouth to get you through to the next meal. They're learning. If you don't wear socks, you're going to get blisters. So it's so much easier to actually have that first blister than to bark and bark and bark and bark and bark about what a blister might be. They've never seen it. They've never felt it. They don't know what you're talking about. So it's okay for us to stand back and experience some of that suffering in the name of learning. So whenever you can say, what would happen if I did nothing right now? Maybe that's okay. Maybe I can tolerate letting life do its own teaching. So, and if you've had your children learn from a natural consequence, can you please share it in the comment field? It's so, I think, empowering when parents hear from other parents, not just from me. We want to hear your stories. You're the ones living this stuff. You're the ones that can encourage your peers. Hang in there. I did it. I was scared in the beginning, but I got over it. That's so empowering. So please share your success stories, any tips that you have, a natural consequence that your kids learned from that you were glad happened. Post that too, please. So moving on, what happens then is if you can see the quick learning curve that happens with natural consequences, we want to take the same principles and apply it to what are called logical consequences. Logical consequences is one of the biggest replacements for the punishment model. So every parent should really know about these. Here's what they look like. You have to create a logical consequence. See, with natural consequences, Mother Nature, it was gravity, the spring, something else did the teaching. But logical consequences are about social living. So now we have to actually come up with the consequence ourselves. So it takes more brain power, it takes more thinking. And we have to make sure that the consequence that we create in terms of cause and effect actually meets the criteria of being logical. So for example, if you get down from the dinner table, what's the consequence for that? What's the outcome for that? If we say, if you get down from the dinner table, you don't get a story at bedtime, that's not logically connected to the behavior. The child is just going to think that you're in that triangle tyrant, just thinking of things to oppress me, ruin my fun, be mean to me, punish me. And so we're likely to get retaliation from that. But if it's logical, it stays with being a discipline in the true sense of the word disciple, to teach. I'm just educating you about the social laws of living, the same way you're educating them about the games of soccer. This is how we play the game of life. When people get down from the table, it means they're excused. And so when you get down, that tells me you're done. I'm just teaching you about how life goes in our culture. So it has an educative component to it. So now we have to give our kids choice. A consequence is really about giving our kids the opportunity to select for themselves how they're going to behave. If we sit at the table, then we can stay and have dinner with everybody and be social. If we get down from the table, that's a clue in our culture that you're done your meal and that you've excused yourself. So I'm going to pop your plate away, and that will be the end of mealtime for you. So now, said up front, we're giving the child the point of choice. So think about that in your own life. If I told you that you could rent a Ferrari for $7 a month, wouldn't you go, oh, I'm in, $7 Ferrari, absolutely. And then when you hand the car in at the end of your, whatever 4-month lease, I say, oh, but there's $1 million buyout at the end. Didn't I tell you that? You're like, well, I would have made a different decision if I knew there was $1 million buyout. Too many times we end up saying to our kids, you know what? I didn't like how you threw that bottle at me in the car today, so we're not going to the park after pickup. Wait, I didn't know park was on the line. I didn't know I was going to screw up the park trip. We have to give them the choice up front so that they can weigh the decisions and then decide on their behavior. And the consequences need to be related. Where I see people trying to give consequences and where they backfire is that what we like to do is we like to just threaten consequences. I swear if you get down from the table, I will. I'm going to take your plate away. Yes, I am. No, you sit here and you eat. No, if you get down. And we talk 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 until finally the kids go, they're not taking my plate away. And so the minute you have been busy talking, they completely disregard you as a leader, so that when you finally say, get angry enough or upset enough, you finally take the plate away. The child is actually shocked. Well, of course they're going to break down into tears. They honestly didn't know it was coming. And you're like, why didn't they know it was coming? I've been doing nothing but talking about it for the last 3 months. But you're so erratic in how you do it. How are they expected to learn? From an actual learning model, it's like teaching a rat to run through a maze, but you keep changing the gates. It's like being consistent is really, really helpful to your kids. So provide the choice and then follow through. Actually execute, be consistent. And then the last part is that you need to do it in a friendly way. The friendliness is the difference between whether your motivation was to educate them or whether your motivation was to punish them. Because if you end up taking away the plate and you say, yeah, okay, fine, and make a big motion to scrape the plate down the garburator and, well, don't come looking at me if you're hungry in an hour. You're the one who chose not to eat. What you're really doing is we're still of the mindset that if the child doesn't feel just a little bit of pain, they're going to keep making that same choice. You need to divest yourself of the child's choice. Just, oh, looks like you've decided for you. And have faith that what's going to happen is after an hour, that natural consequence of hunger is going to kick in. And now we can be really sympathetic and say, oh, I know you got down from the table. You hadn't figured that out yet. You misjudged that. That's okay. You'll figure it out. Snack time's coming up soon. So allow them to actually go through the experience of the consequence. So I'll use another example. Take time for training. You take your child to the grocery store. They have the little kitty carts. Instead of handing them the kitty cart and then careening through the aisles and you saying, don't hit that, slow down, don't run. We're going to say, we need to use the cart. We need to stay close to mommy. We need to walk. If we'd like to use the cart, we need to follow those rules. If we can't stay close to mommy and not run with the cart, then the logical consequence is, then we need to put the cart back and try another day. So now they start running with the cart. Oh, looks like we're having trouble with the cart. I can help you. We put the cart back. That makes sense? It's logical, it's related, you followed through. Are they gonna cry now because they wish that they lost the cart? I know, you're disappointed. You're really sad with your choice. You were really hoping to have the cart. But you know what? We get to try tomorrow. We come back to the grocery store tomorrow. You can give it a go again. I take them the second time. Woo, they ride with the cart. I know, 2 days in a row, that's really hard, but you'll figure it out. When you wanna keep the cart, I'm sure you'll decide. Third time the kids are like, I want this cart. I better rein myself in. They will start to make behavioral choices again, not because you're threatening them, not because you're rewarding them, because they intrinsically are motivated to see that if I want the responsibility of having this cart, I better then choose to have if I want the freedom of having the cart, pardon me, I better choose then to be responsible for what's required of having cart privileges. So your kids will learn. So every time I have to apply a consequence and my child is unhappy about it, I'm actually happy because I'm thinking, I only have to do this 2 or 3 more times. And then I'm getting to be the mom who's got the kid with the proper manners with their cart. And all the other parents are gonna be saying, how did you get your kid to behave like that? Yeah, well, you didn't see me 2 days ago when it all looked terrible, but I put in the time and I've been consistent. And now all that training is paid off because now I get to have a good time at the grocery store, fill my child's bucket with good experiences rather than having to discipline them for what could be years and years of screaming at your kid about the cart. So apply those logical consequences. They're super powerful. Okay, I'm gonna now go back to some of your questions, see if people are chiming in. Do you like these? Do you like consequences? They're super, super effective. Okay, stop, there we go. Our kids have the option to take one small toy with them when we go out to the store, restaurant, errands, family member's house. But we always warn them that the toy is their responsibility to take care of and not lose. I love that. Our oldest lost his toy at the grocery store one time when he was 4. Now he's 6 and he usually skips taking an item with him in the item with him in the car and always warns his brother and sisters that they better be ready to take care of them because it's easy to lose things out of their house. Hooray for letting them learn lessons. Oh, I love that. So imagine, you know, if we think about, again, disciple to teach, what are they learning? Because you were consistent and you followed through and he lost something is, again, suffering like the little chick and the egg. But what he learned was, wow, I'm either not going to take things or I'm going to for sure check. Imagine what the learning would have been if he lost his favorite toy and then you went out and replaced it. Because kids are always learning. The question is, what are they learning? What he'd end up learning is, oh, well, whatever, you can leave it anywhere, it just gets replaced. You know, mom will find it, she'll chase it, she'll replace it. But you did a beautiful job of actually, and plus, what an honor to say to him, I actually trust you at 4 and 6 and whatever, that you can be responsible for your things. I actually trust that you can learn from your mistakes. That messaging underneath of having trust and faith as a learner, as someone to recover from mistakes, super empowering messaging to your kids. So yay, thank you for posting the wins. I hope that inspires other parents to see short-term pain, long-term gain, you're teaching the right lessons. That's awesome. Please keep posting your questions. I'm gonna go back to my.
We have one question in the question and answer.
Oh, okay.
Function,
I can scoot over there. I was looking in chat, but thank you. This platform has other ways. How would you suggest we apply this to electronics, iPads, iPhone, televisions, where there's some substantial whining for it and the appetites are almost completely insatiable? That's so true. So I'm gonna go to my PowerPoint here and, but I will answer the question here. Just because I have, oh, he wants me to close this. 2 seconds here. Got it. There. Okay, so thank you for the question. I think most of the people that are on the chat have younger kids. Like I just gave a talk last night to teens and tweens on social media, so very different kind of messaging for them. But when our kids are little and they're using electronics, the interface with them is mostly for passive entertainment, maybe a little bit educative, you know, learning their numbers and learning their letters. And that's really wonderful. But just like any other form of like watching television back in our day, we might have said, oh, you know, you can watch a half an hour of the Flintstones before dinner. And the half hour had a beginning and an end, and you clicked off the television. So the same should be with our kids and technology. We want to tell them exactly how long that limit is. You want to let them know up front. I think using a timer that actually makes a sound is really important, because otherwise they're just going to feel like how long they get the computer is until you get tired of them using the iPad, and then you say that's enough and take it away, and it feels arbitrary. When it feels arbitrary, it feels back like the triangle, like you're the tyrant in control, and it's because I say so when I'm fed up, when I've had enough, and that's going to make your kids feel oppressed and that you're being mean. Whereas again, if we're chalking the boundaries of how we do things and we're making our rules clear, then we say, we have iPad time, it's for half an hour, we do it after, when I'm cooking dinner, or you know, after afternoon nap, whatever it might be. You turn the timer on. When the timer goes off, you go, oh, Mr. Timer, it's done already? We were just watching Paw Patrol. Oh, that's hard, isn't it? And because that timer went off, we closed down the iPad, and we can have great empathy. I know it's hard to say goodbye to having a good time, isn't it? And I would make a little calendar that shows tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Look, there we go. We're going to have it again tomorrow. We can watch more Paw Patrols tomorrow. It's written right there. Kids need things visual. They need things concrete. It shows the commitment. It keeps you consistent as well. So if you've made the arrangement, it's every day at 4 o'clock, pin that on the calendar, because it's super important. And you know, they can whine. You can be, it's okay. I know it's sad, but it doesn't mean that it earns you more computer time. I can't tell you how many kids have learned that bad moods, whether it's whining or tantruming, will get them their way. We need to show kids other ways to get their way other than bad behavior that eventually tires us out and makes us cave. That's going to be a recipe for disaster. So let me move ahead here. You can hear it going boink, boink. It doesn't want me to use that button. All right.
You have to share screen again.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, thank
you.
You guys can only see me on screen, but it's like I'm in the NASA control room with all the kids and company people here that know more tech than me. There we go. Back to share. Going here. We'll have to make these an hour and 15 to allot for the 15 minutes I was going back and forth. Oh, it doesn't want me to do it. Hold on here. Let's see, I get my tech support person. Here it says next. Try this. There we go. Okay, I got to go. All right, thanks for your patience. So so I've given you natural consequences. I have given you logical consequences. And now I have another one that's a terrific starter discipline tool. When we are working in a module where we're not looking for obedience, we are looking for cooperation. The trick here is that I want to control the social order of the house. I'm not trying to control the child. I'm sure you can all have the experience of, I can't get my kid to. We can't really control other people. Just like trying to make kids listen, we can't control other people, but we can control the environment. We can control the social order. So an example of that would be like, think about the social order of Toronto. We got to get how many millions of people to work every day on the subway system. So the subway driver, you're going to be like the subway driver of your family. You pull into the station, right? Bay station, close the doors are closing. Lower station, close the doors are closing. If you're tuning in from another part of the country, do you have a subway system? But you know, they come to the stop, they open the doors, people get in, they close the door, they go. We don't have people pulling into the station and going, you know, hello, little boy, are you putting on your pajamas? Are you getting ready? Are you going to come? You know, it would completely clog the entire system of getting people to work. So we are going to control the social order of our household and our family in a strong leadership position. So one of the ways that we can do that is to explain first this, then that, or when this, then that. So I can't make a child wash their hands. I mean, I might fight and scream or whatever, but I don't want to do that. I want to be an effective disciplinarian. So what I'm simply going to say is, it's a requirement to have clean hands to come to the dinner table. So when your hands are clean, then I know you're ready for a snack. Now you're putting the power back to the child to make a decision for themselves, but you're holding them accountable because you're saying, well, you do you. I don't know if you're going to wash your hands or not, but what I know is I'm not going to provide snack to anyone who doesn't have clean hands. So now the child, they may not want to have snack. That's fine. Let them run around and do whatever. But eventually when they actually want to eat, say, yes, absolutely. Happy to serve you up that yogurt tube. When your hands are clean, then I'll know you're ready for the yogurt tube. Eventually they're going to decide, oh, you know what? I guess it's in my best interest to make a different choice for myself, and they'll go wash their hands. It might be something like when they come in and they throw their coat on the floor. You know, hey, when our job is looked after, then I know that we're ready for playtime. And so you can get busy doing whatever. Then, will you play with me? Will you play with me? Yeah, and just point. Remember I said less words? When your job is done, I use the word job for everything because kids know, they know their responsibilities. So the less words, don't say in 120 words what you can say in a paragraph. Don't say in a paragraph what you can say in a sentence. Don't say in a sentence something that you can say in one word. You know, or don't say in one word something that you can say with a symbol. So if you have to say, when your coat is picked up, then I know it's time to play, that's really short. But you could also say, coat. You could also just go. So get it as brief as possible. The less you talk when we're instructing kids, when we're correcting kids, the better. Kids get on average 200 compliance requests a day. Hang up your coat, wash your hands, brush your hair. I mean, how would you live life with 200 requests a day? It makes them feel picked on, and 60% of them they ignore anyways, which just makes us look like bad leaders. They become parent deaf. They don't believe in our authority. So less verbal is better. When, then. And you can, again, have a time limit. You can say, when your PJs are on, then I know it's time for story time. But if they keep dawdling, it doesn't mean story time is 10 o'clock at night. You can say, you know what, I'm really worried that we're running out of time because tuck-ins are over at 7:30 and it's already 7:20. You know, so when your PJs are on, then I can start reading stories. And if they don't, and say, oh, you know what, unfortunately, 7:30 came and there was no PJs on and we ran out of story time, so good night. And then you leave. Again, the first night, are they going to cry? Are they going to protest? Are they going to be upset? Yeah, they're learning. They didn't know that's how that was going to go down. But the second day, if you're consistent, you know, I'm really worried at 7:20, we don't have our PJs on, we're cutting into story time. When your jammies are on, then I know you're ready for your book. Third night, wait, hold on, I'll put on my pajamas. I don't want to miss out on story time. So yeah, it's going to look a little sloppy as they're doing the take time for training, but if you're consistent, if you're pleasant in your friendliness, kids will learn. And you didn't have to fight, you didn't have to threaten, you didn't have to reward them or punish them. That's you being an effective disciplinarian. So let's go, we got 10 minutes to go. Let me go back to our questions. I hope people are feeling that I've given them enough outlines to actually share some more comments. We specifically used my computer because I knew my touchpad and it's acting. All right. Just trying to go. Oh, thank you, fantastic webinar thanker. Thanks. Hi, Alyson. I am constantly setting the timer on our microwave for everything from time on iPads to when they get on their coats and get ready for school. In fact, my kids say to me now, Mom, how much time till it beeps? Very effective. It's so, you know, it's an example, just again, to load more tools into your toolbox. It's an example of using an outside authority. So the clock becomes objective. Kids like objectivity, and it's something other than you. So another example to that might be kids are more likely to brush their teeth because the dentist said they'll get cavities than if you say, because I say so. Oh, well, it's the dentist, you know, I have to. Or to the point about, we're looking at the iPads or whatever, your kids might want to get on a game or something, and you might like actually log on and say, you know what, I just went to commonsensemedia.org and it says right here, this game is not appropriate for kids under 8. So instead of me saying, no way, you're not watching that, it's like, actually, no, we're not, this website says it's not okay. Oh, you know, why is it time to go, let me just Google that. Oh, because it says the average 4-year-old needs this many hours of sleep, and so that's why our bedtime is when it is. So anytime you can use an external authority, it's going to be helpful to you. And kids really like that objectivity. And in fact, there's visual timers now that are used so that kind of like the way we use the old hourglass. I still use that. You know, if you pull it out of old board games, because it shows kids the passage of time. And that helps them know, we're in such a digital world, it's hard to know time management, and the passage of time is actually a more complicated skill. It's really great for kids to understand, what does 5 minutes feel like? If I have 5 minutes to get dressed, how long does 5 minutes really take? So if they can see that visually, it's great. So at our family, one of the great, I think, important things to teach kids is about not interrupting. And so the way we taught our kids that was, each of them would have an opportunity to hold the salt shaker. And then, because I didn't want them to be like filibusters, like, I got the salt shaker, I'm going to talk for the whole meal. We had the little timer from one of their board games, like, as long as you have the talking stick and the sand is still falling, then you have the table and we will all listen. And when the sand finished, then it's, okay, now we turn it off, pass it to your brother, now we're going to hear about his day. Okay, now it's my turn, I have the table. So that we could appreciate, one of the benefits of thwarting our desire to want to talk over someone is that when you have the floor, kind of like your birthday, you get the attention, everyone listens, we can hear each other better, but it means when it's not your turn, you need to do your turn in listening. And I think teaching kids not to interrupt and take turns listening is a super important first skill of life. So use the timer, use something to designate that they've got the floor, they're the speaker. It's a great skill for kids to learn. All right. Will you share a document detailing your main points after this call? In fact, I have a document so great that it's 260 pages long. I've got the, I'm happy to share the slides, and the actual webinar is recorded. So if you want to watch this again, if you want to advance it to a certain point, if you want to share it with your partner or your caregivers, then absolutely do so. But everything that we've talked about today, I would say the Honey, I Wrecked the Kids is really the book about misbehavior and discipline tools. I think that's just a really wonderful resource for anyone who's got kids this age. More questions, please? Otherwise, I'm going to...
Question feature, we have one.
Oh, back to the Q&A? Is that right? But yeah, just read it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So we have a question. What do you suggest when the tantrum after the consequences affects moving forward in your day, like getting out the door, etc.? For example, my young daughter had a meltdown the other day as we were getting into the car because she wanted a snack. Part of the meltdown was the rigid back arch that all parents are familiar with, which made it almost impossible to physically get her into her car seat. So naturally, my response was to take her to get a snack so I could get her in the car instead of standing in a parking lot with a screaming toddler.
Yeah. I am sure every single person that is listening to this is saying, like, I got your back, I've been there too. Like, it's, we're all on this journey together, and the problems of any one of us are really common problems amongst all of us. So whatever answer I give, I know it helps everybody. So the first thing, when we're looking at tantrums, I agree that there is, I can give you parenting advice on how to help a dysregulated child get re-regulated, how to calm them, how to soothe them, and it does take time. So the first thing I would say is, if you know that you're going to start implementing things that are going to have the blowout, you need to adjust your time accordingly. That means move your departure time in the morning to be 10 minutes earlier in anticipation of having the meltdown. If she learns that all I need to do is have a meltdown and then I get my snack because of time restraints or whatever, it's going to reinforce the tantrum. Now, having said that, so move back your time, help them be calm. Don't let them use their bad mood to get their way. But when I'm working with parents around tantrums, I'm far more interested in preventing tantrums than giving you advice on how to deal with them after they've been happening. What was the trigger? Why was she so upset? So we go to the point about asking for snacks. So I'm guessing, and we're not interacting, but if we were chatting about this, I'm telling you, I've done enough of this in my life. If I look at that snack, we probably have inconsistency around that, because no kid would blow up to that extent unless they felt it was unfair. We might not think it's unfair, but it means that it is not clear, like in the games of soccer, what is the rule around snacks? When do we have it? How much notice do we need to give? What is the policy? It's too ambiguous. So for the child to be that reactive means that, kind of like if you're playing soccer and the ball goes out and the ref doesn't call foul, it's like, what? Like, everyone is fine when they make a fair shot. You might go, oh, darn, I lost the shot. But if it's an unfair call, you freak out. There's something about snacks that your child does not understand that made your saying no feel incredibly unfair. So I would simply say, we need to talk about snacks in our family and how we get out the door so that there's an understanding and so that people don't feel such misery in our family around that. And so it might be, either if you're going to have snack, you might have a deadline saying, okay, last call for snacks because we got to move on to school. And if people haven't finished by 8:20, this is last call for snack. And maybe you need to call that every single day. And then if you say, oh, I'm sorry, you missed last call for snack, something has to be more clear about your snacks. And once you get that piece figured out, you're not going to have the meltdowns. So for anyone listening, it might not be snacks in your house, but when you have a kid who tantrums, go back to what they're upset about and ask yourself, are there clear understandings? Am I consistent in enforcing it? Does it feel arbitrary to them? Because a lot of times what ends up happening is in our mind, we'll end up going like, okay, well, you know what? Let's say they had pancakes for breakfast, or they're going to a birthday party. That means there's going to be cake there. And then, we're going to Grandma. She's going to serve ice cream. That's too many sweets and calories. No. And the kid's just like, what was that equation? They don't know. All they know is you are the gatekeeper to snacks. And sometimes I ask you and you say yes. And sometimes I ask you and I say no. And I don't get it. And I don't like it. And why do you have this control over me? And I'm going to cry. And if I cry loud enough, then I'm going to get my granola bar. And so I want to replace that with a better understanding of how it all plays out. You got to be able to verbalize it, make it objective, make it clear, make it concrete. And then it's not your words, it's what you do. So it's like, nope, no snacks now, nope, snack now, snack time's at 4, snack time's at 4, whatever it might be. So I hope that's helpful. But back out your time, because you're right. It's going to take longer. And when you're doing the take time for training with the little grocery carts, don't do that when you're shopping for Thanksgiving or Easter dinner or whatever, because you actually have to get the grocery shopping done. I would go to the grocery store with the intention of doing nothing but have my kid melt down over their cart and go home. And you're lucky if you pick up a bag of milk. When you do take time for training, you plan it. When I trained my kids to eat in restaurants, I was not expecting to finish a meal. I was going often in 2 cars because I would say, like, if you melt down in the restaurant, then you need to go sit in the car. So you might need the other parent to sit with the kid or drive the kid home. So you got to plan in advance when you're doing this take time for training. It's wildly inconvenient, but you only have to do it 2-3 times. That's the whole joy behind it. And like I said, then you get the nice compliments like, oh, look at me with the well-behaved kid. It feels nice. Feels nice. All right. On to more chat. More questions, people? We're at 12:59. 1 minute. Maybe I just need to wrap up. Okay, I will wrap up. Let's see here. What do I want to wrap up with? I know what I want to wrap up with. Let me wrap up with sharing you this. I have a newsletter. I hope you visit my website at alysonschafer.com. We'll be sharing all that information with you. But tomorrow, if this has been interesting for you, I monthly do a Facebook Live as well. So if you follow me on my website, on Instagram, whatever, I am constantly in dialogue with parents. I'm constantly sharing resources with parents. Yes, I love my books, but the truth is, doing the webinars like this, being able to ask questions and interact like this is fantastic. So I make myself available through my hashtag Ask Alyson. Just stay engaged, stay in touch, be on this journey with the other pilgrims who are trying to figure out how to do this without losing our minds, how to be effective disciplinarians without punishment and rewards. It's a new model. We're all figuring out together, but I hope I gave you some of the most powerful ones, the when, then, the natural and logical consequences. Start with a little bit of change. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just work on one thing you want to improve. Maybe it's just getting out the door. Maybe it's just getting the kid to sit at the table. Just pick one thing and get a success, and then start with your next one. Don't just say like logical consequences across the board. You won't be consistent. You won't be successful, and then you'll beat yourself up. So just have one small win, and we've got your back. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Alyson. That was exceptionally insightful. Unfortunately, I have a 20-year-old, so I should have been listening to you 18 years ago. We are, again, delighted to have launched our first webinar. We will definitely be inviting Alyson back. Yay! And seeking her advice. And our next webinar is going to be on April the 11th. It will be with Carrie Bruno. She's the CEO of Mama Coach. So please tune into that one. And again, thank you very much.